Call this special meeting of the Board of Finance to order on Wednesday, April 8th at 7:11 p.m. Good evening, everyone. My name is Camille Alberti. I'm the chair of the Board of Finance. Joining me this evening are the following panelists: Ann Chicello, Vice Chair of the Board of Finance; John Birmingham, Board of Finance member; Peter DeRosa, Board of Finance member; Ann Santoro, Board of Finance member; Rich Steele, Board of Finance member; Mark Nickerson, First Selectman; Anna Johnson, Finance Director for the town; Bill Shear, Town Engineer; Jeff Newton, School Superintendent; Mariana Stevens, Finance Director for the Board of Ed; Tim Hagan, Chair of the Board of Education; and Karen Zimitrick, our Recording Secretary. The purpose of tonight's meeting is really to have a discussion amongst the Board of Finance members and our other guests to hammer out a new schedule and process for the budget moving forward. Before we get to that point in the agenda, Mark Nickerson, Jeff Newton, and myself will just speak for 3 to 5 minutes to give an update on the state of our town and the budget and the challenges that we're currently facing. Before I get started, I'd like to take a moment to thank Bill Shear, because he really has been the enabler for our town in establishing the Zoom application and platform, which we are going to rely on in the next couple of months in lieu of public meetings. And we'll do this as long as we're under the current social distancing restrictions. So I'll read my statement, should just be a couple of minutes, and then I'll turn it over to Mark for his comments. When we first received the general government and Board of Education budgets, I was concerned about the proposed increases because I believed that we would enter a new recession before fully recovering from the Great Recession of 2007 and 2009. I don't think anyone, myself included, was prepared for the economic downturn that this coronavirus pandemic may bring. I'm grateful to the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Education for offering to revisit their original budgets and to consider adjustments before presenting them to our board. That is a significant change from the way the budget process worked in the past. By postponing the budget presentations and deliberations until May, the Board of Finance will be in a better position to assess the impact of COVID-19 on our local economy. For the record, I understand and appreciate the governor's intent to ensure public safety during this pandemic by not having public meetings. However, I don't necessarily agree with the executive order to bypass a voter referendum. Therefore, I promise that we will do our very best to adopt the most responsible budget possible, given the uncertainty of the economic fallout from this pandemic. In return, I ask the residents of East Lyme to believe in our board's commitment to not abuse the power that has been bestowed upon our board by the governor. With that, I'll turn it over to Mark Nickerson to say a few words.
Thank you, Camille. The state of the world right now, from our perspective, right, from East Lyme / Niantic perspective, is well, it's a different one, isn't it? We've closed town hall. We closed that several weeks ago. We locked the doors and continued to work for a week. I think only a week, maybe 2. And then we sent everyone home, and we're working remotely. Many of our departments are open. They're working remotely. They're picking up mail once or twice a week. They're picking up phone messages daily, or, or maybe having phones transferred to them. So we're trying to keep the cogs moving, but it's difficult. Most departments, are doing catch-up work, doing work that, has been sitting there ready to be worked on when they found a spare moment, and that's getting done, but that's going to run out. If I speak for the Public Works Department, there's plenty of work to do in the springtime, and they can't put things off, like flushing of hydrants, storm drains, field prep, sweeping of the roads, things like that just need to be done every year. We can't put those things off. I think the governor is up to Executive Order V, as in Victor. That means there was a lot of executive orders. Last week, the pace was frantic. Last week, almost, a couple times a day, we were getting executive orders, changing the way we were going to run government. Camille spoke to that. Many of them reflect town government, referendums, town meetings, regular committee meetings. And some others have a wide range of things that the executive orders affected us as a town, as a municipality. This week, that pace has slowed down, and now we're getting into that reality of implementing those executive orders. What we see is what we got, and we will, for the next several weeks or months, carry those executive orders out. I meet weekly with Council of Governments, with CCM, with the health districts, with the Department of Emergency Management and Homeland Security, which is also called DEMIS, Region 4. Department heads are meeting weekly. They have been meeting bi-weekly. We're going down to a weekly schedule, and the Emergency Operations Center in town also get together. We're constantly in communication. It's a different type of communication. I usually enjoyed walking around town hall and going to all the different departments and all the different buildings and eyeballing one-on-one with our department heads. And obviously that can't happen now. We struggle with our recreation. You've seen the Facebooks, the boardwalk stuff that we're putting out. We're trying to keep our recreational facilities open for mental health and for physical health reasons, for people to get outside but stay safe. We're right on the edge of maybe not being able to continue to do that. If the governor shuts down state parks, we will shut down. If the governor shuts down Rocky Neck Beach, we have to shut down because they'll all come here. We're just watching. So there are still some, we're watching every day changes. I'll let you know that the biggest union that we deal with at the town side, which is called UPSU, it's a wall-to-wall unit. I don't want to run long here, but it's a wall-to-wall unit. It means everybody in town hall, but all the guys that run the trucks and everything in between have been. We've been working with that union, and what we did is we negotiated an MOU that said we wish not to lay anyone off during this. We wish not to furlough. We wish not to lose people, because everyone needs to bring home a paycheck and everyone needs to pay their bills, put food on the table. But we need to strike a compromise, and we did. So some workers have an essential occupation and they're working full time. Some are working 75% or 50% of the time. Some are working even less than that. They'll make up the difference between, let's say it's 50%. We'll pay them for their 50%, and the other 50% will come from their personal time off, their PTO time, any earned time off. And while they'll still bring home 100% paycheck, and the taxpayers will be footing that bill as they would have anyway, there is a commodity that is being expended by the employee. They are working down, paying down on their PTO time. We thought that was a nice compromise. As you know, they can, and their contract is designed to accumulate earned time. And this is an opportunity. We thought that, you know what, let's let's spend that down a little bit and meet you halfway. So that's where we're at now. We want to keep departments operating. People are still calling in. The tax office is busy all day long fielding questions. The assessor's office, town clerk's office, they're manning the office, and the doors are locked, but they'll have people drop off marriage certificates in the drop box, and then they'll go out and certify them and do a hands-free handoff there. So we're still working through it. It's been very, very difficult, as you can well imagine, but we want to get through it. We do know that there's another side to this. We're going to get to the other side and get back to hopefully a good summer in fantastic Niantic. We shall soon see. Most of our programming for the summer is on hold, including Celebrating Lyme. We just don't know what the world's going to look like come that time. So everything's in a holding pattern, and we haven't made any decisions yet. Are there any questions? Okay.
There's no questions, then we'll turn it over to Jeff. I think you wanted to speak for 3 to 5 minutes, or Tim. I'm not.
Yeah, please. That'd be great. A couple of points that we just wanted to share, and Tim and Mariana, please jump in. If I miss anything, I'll try and kind of peruse through these fairly quick. First and foremost, hope everybody is safe and doing okay, and their families aren't impacted by this. I know it's flipped everybody's world upside down, and that's kind of the first piece I wanted to share. Our educational world is completely upside down now, where our teachers are all sitting at home and working quite a few hours. I'm hearing 12-hour days, 15-hour days. They're trying to manage their own families, and many young teachers have young children, so they're trying to balance that between teaching their class. We are not doing live online teaching. There's a handful, many districts have done that across the state, many have not. We are a district that has not jumped right into that for fear of FERPA violations and different things. So we're taking a cautious approach to that, which we feel is important, and it's working well for us, I think. But our teachers and admin they're tired, they're struggling, and I think we are recognizing April vacation next week. So I think that is a good thing. Give everybody a chance to kind of take a breath, slow things down a little bit. In the technology world, because this is, we've had a big number in our budget for next year to request some technology items. We have deployed 293 devices out into the community. A few for some of our staff members, but majority, 98% of those has been for parents and families. We've also supported over 30 families with internet service, free internet service. So that, we're concerned when this is all done, and hopefully sooner than later, in getting all those devices back in working order, because all those devices are ones that we use in the classroom. So they all were pulled off of carts, from the schools. We've tried to give, things that aren't, 5, 6, 7 years old to parents, so they would work, in their homes and connect to their wireless access points, in their homes. So we're also working through some online platforms. The high school has used what's called Google Classroom for a number of years now. We've moved that down to our middle school. So grades 5 through 8 are now using what's called Google Classroom. So it's just an opportunity for teachers to converse with students, online, not video, but online through email, sharing of documents. So that has been helpful. We're just starting at the middle school, and then we're also using a new platform down at the elementaries, because right now it's just been email back and forth between parents and teachers, to get work, to kids and going for kids. So the platforms will be much better, and we're looking forward to getting those up and running right after vacation. But with that comes training and PD for our teachers. So that's the other piece. Teachers are scrambling to try and provide, work and services for kids, but they're also being trained on the backside too, so they can do these things electronically moving forward. One of the pieces is the world of special education. We've mentioned a couple times, we have 425 students that have individualized education plans, and we need to provide services. We've been told and given the direction to the best of our ability through the state, and that's what we're doing. But after April vacation, we will be starting online platforms with those students, and that will be live chats, because we have to provide intervention services for those students. So that's a very important piece. I'm nervous where the world of special education is going to go, especially if this carries into the summer, because we have extended school year services for students. So half of our 425 roughly receive summer services. They come to the middle school for a morning session from roughly 8:30 until noon. If we can't get into the buildings even over the summer, then we're backed up in that sense too. So I'm very nervous for what the fall is going to bring, for how parents are going to react to the lack of services that are being provided in the world of special education. We're doing the best we can, and we will continue to do the best we can. Our teachers have been great. They're connecting with parents, and parents have been very supportive, but we just have to make sure that we can continue to provide as many services as possible. So that's kind of a tech update, a special education update. Camille had forwarded Executive Order 7R, which had sent you, that talked about our staffing, and Mark just talked about town hall staffing. For our staffing in school, we are obligated to pay anybody who's part of the operating budget. So that's pretty much everybody outside of our aquatics program staff, because it's a revenue. The pool is a revenue-based program, as well as some of our before and after school programs as well, because those are revenue based. So those are the only individuals that have been furloughed, collecting unemployment. But everybody else, is still on the payroll and is still being paid. We're trying to get everybody up and working, especially right now where our focus is on our paraprofessionals and getting them engaged, re-engaged with teachers. They're doing PD work right now. So they're at home, but they are getting paid just as everyone else is. So the other piece of 7R you probably noticed was transportation, one of our biggest contracts with busing. So we are really being pushed, and it was right in the document, on page 2 and 3, page 3 actually of that 7R, basically to make payments to transportation providers so that they may compensate their active employees and provide them health insurance. So we are negotiating. Mariana's done a great job working with First Student, as we've had many regional manager conversations with them. And we're trying to find a happy medium as to, okay, what should we be paying that covers and helps out your staff? We shouldn't be paying for, buses that are sitting on the side of the road and not moving. So that is still in negotiation. Our attorney is involved as well. And hopefully we'll have some resolution. Maybe it'll save us a little bit of money, which we're hopeful for too. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. Just one other piece with our budget. We had frozen our budget this year right before this had come to fruition, because we were concerned. We've got some special ed overages, a couple new students that have been outplaced this year, which are costing us a lot of money. So we froze the budget right before this hit. So we're working through, where we're going to land at the end of the year with our budget, and that's still in process, and we will keep doing that. But we are taking the budget seriously. We know a 4.98 is not appropriate, and what's going on in this community. So we are really working hard to make some reductions and plan on bringing that information forward soon. Tim or Mariana, I don't know if you have anything else you want to kind of add to that.
Good job, Jeff.
Mariana, anything at all? Okay. Any questions that anybody has? Sorry, Camille, I didn't mean to go. I might be a little over the time.
Oh,
limit,
no.
Yeah.
That's fine, Jeff. I will say that we have a comment that came in. I don't know if the panelists are following the comment section. This is from Brendan Cunningham. We appreciate what the teachers have offered our children. So just a nice note of support while we're on this webinar.
So I have
Thank you, Brendan.
question, Jeff. I was just wondering, do you have any savings that you're realizing because the schools have been closed? And
Well, in having to pay everybody, and that's something we're still trying to work through. I know Mariana is doing a great job of collecting, just like the town is doing, collecting all of our expenses, our COVID-related expenses, to try and see what we'll be able to get for reimbursement. But the only savings, I think right now, real true savings, is going to be probably around the transportation if we come to an agreement. We know we're not going to pay 100% of the final 3 months of this contract, but what is it going to be? That's what we're trying to figure out. We're trying to get to a place of maybe around 70%. They're wanting more and pushing hard back on that. So
I was thinking more so. If the schools aren't open, like their heating costs that you're savings, is there anything like to do with the maintenance of the schools since no one's in there?
Well, all the custodians are still there. Contractors are coming in. We thought maybe there'd be some savings with electricity, but and heat. But really, it hasn't been cold enough where we've turned the temperatures down. So there's been a couple cold days since March 13th, but so we might see a little bit of savings there. But Mariana, I don't know if you have any other thoughts on that.
Yeah, we'll have a little bit of savings in natural gas, electricity until I get my next bill. I'm not going to know for sure, but with the custodians still working in there, and then with the 3 elementary schools, we're trying to finish up the punch list. So we've had contractors in there working to finish up the punch list from the construction. So I'm not sure how big of a savings we'll realize.
There might be a few $1,000s in the pool because we have turned the heater, way down on the pool, and the natural gas that averaged about was about $1,500 a month, Mariana, roughly. So we'll have a couple $1,000s there. So we're trying to scrape it all together and add it to a pile to see what we come up with at the end of the year. But just don't forget we were in that hole to begin with, so that's why we froze the budget right before this happened. And we'll see. So obviously some POs and supplies, aren't being purchased. So that's going to help too.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I had a question for Jeff and Mariana and Tim. So and I guess we can get to this later as well, but while I have you here, the Board of Education is going to revise its document from what I understand. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to make some adjustments. Yeah.
Sure. Okay. That's great. So I see that on the chart that Camille has put together, that's going to be as of May 4th. Is that, so I think that's the date that, because then a couple of days thereafter, Board of Education will present to us again by this method, but we have your department hearing is coming up thereafter. Okay, so my question is just procedurally, is it possible to move that date just slightly? I mean, I know we want the most recent information, but for example, as you can see, you're already having these different changes and this and that, but it might be helpful to do it just a little bit earlier than that time, than the 4th. And I asked this too because Anne, my colleague on the board, was also beginning to ask those substantive questions, which we'll have to get into at a different meeting. But it really points to the fact that we're also eager to get the information and begin to digest it, begin to put the pieces of this puzzle together, that we're going to have to really put together.
We are, Jeff, maybe I could just say, we are scheduling an additional board meeting for April 21st. It's difficult for us to have a board meeting next week because it is the spring break.
Yeah.
And then we have a board meeting scheduled for April 27th, which would be the day that we would finalize the budget proposal recommendations that would then come forward to you. So I felt that it was really important that we have at least 2 board meetings where the board has an opportunity to really argue and fight over exactly what we're going to bring forward.
Right.
Because I think it's going to be those are going to be very tough discussions.
Right. Okay. So you've got
certainly
your
that information as
Okay.
we have those board meetings, that information will all be made available publicly, so you'll be able to track where we're going.
Okay,
and
good
scenarios.
Okay, good point, Tim. That's great. So you've got your process going on, so we can be apprised of that kind of in real time, and that's a good week plus ahead of the schedule of the 4th, which is your designated time to give us that revision. Yeah, but that's any of that and I think that's great.
And I think the other game plan is that Mariana will not be completely revising the entire packet, but what will happen is that portions of it, the high level parts, will be modified kind of redlined and adjusted to show what the recommendation is, along with a PowerPoint type of presentation as well. So
Sure.
you'll be able to kind of see what how we've whittled it down.
Okay. Okay. Well, that sounds great. And those meetings will also be available to the public in the way that this one is, which is the dial in and hearing it and seeing it at least. So yeah, so that's good for the public to know and good for us as the board to know too. Okay. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Okay.
Very good. Any other questions for Jeff or Tim or Mariana? If not, we can move on to the next agenda item, which is new business, discuss the 2020-2021 modified budget process. So at this point, what I'd like to do is share my screen with that process. And it is not showing up. Okay.
It worked so well this afternoon.
I know.
Let's see. Oh, here we go. I think maybe just getting in and out of a screen sometimes helps. Okay. Okay, so can everybody see the special meeting schedule and process?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. So this sort of touches on our new path forward, so to speak, what we are doing this evening on April 8th at 7 p.m. We are on step 2, discussing the remainder of the budget process. What I will say is that I already mentioned in my opening remarks that it's sort of a blessing in disguise that we have postponed our budget presentations and deliberations until May, because we'll have a better understanding of what the impact is going to be on our local economy in terms of perhaps families that are struggling with being laid off, perhaps with getting a better understanding of what our revenues may look like next year coming from the state. So we'll be in a better position the longer that we can hold that off. We'll have more information to make better, more informed decisions. But I think what's important to realize, and you'll see this as we get down to the end of this spreadsheet, is that we'll still finish on time. We're not going to change that May 27th date of final deliberations and setting the mill rate. So that's important for us to know. It's important for the public to know that we will do everything that we can to condense our meetings and still come up with a quality end product. We'll do that by starting on May 4th. Or May 5th, perhaps getting those highlights of the revised Board of Education budget. And as Tim mentioned, the Board of Ed will be meeting on April 21st and April 27th. So we can have a preview of what they are discussing before it actually comes before us. And I would encourage everybody to listen in on those meetings. So that will happen on May 4th. There's no meeting there, just an expectation of when we can possibly see some changes to the Board of Ed budget. Then on May 7th, they will come before us and actually present that to us. That will be our opportunity to ask questions, any more detailed questions that we have. And that night is dedicated solely to the Board of Education, as they, as you know, comprise the largest portion of our entire municipal budget. A couple of days after that, we will have a marathon session. Saturday from 9 to 5, there will be a lunch break there. And the intent here is for the town departments to present their departmental budgets to the Board of Finance. There are some departments that will be represented by Mark and or Anna Johnson. And then there might be some departments where we'll want some representation from the actual department heads. So sometime the week before May 9th, Anna and I will work together to figure out a loose time schedule of when we'll be discussing different departments, and hopefully have those department heads on call within a certain time window so that they can call into our meeting and be available to answer questions for us. On May 13th, that's when we'll actually begin our, now, let me just remind everybody that on the 7th and the 9th, those are presentations. No decisions will be made on those 2 dates. May 13th is when we begin to deliberate on the budgets that have been presented to us. We will ensure that the public is able to listen in. From the time that we publish the budget, the updated budget on the website until the time that we start or finish deliberating, there will be made available to the public a commentary section on the Board of Finance page on the town website where they can submit their comments to the Board of Finance, so that they do have, are able to express their opinion on the budget. Let's see, so on the 18th,
Can I just point out for those listening, it might get it, all the meetings will have a public dial-in. All meetings have to be public. So I know you meant that. You specifically wrote it down in a couple of those dates. But on the 7th and the 9th, they have to be open meetings, not public participation. But like you're doing tonight, there can be, what do you call them, panelists and attendees. People
Yes.
can watch us work because it'll be a public meeting. So I'll just point that out for those people who might be interested.
yes, thanks, Mark. So specifically on this 7th and 9th,
7th and
yes,
9th.
there will be that opportunity. Any meeting that we have from here on out will be done in this fashion through Zoom and with the ability to either dial in or attend the webinar. Okay, thank you. So the revised budget that the Board of Finance comes up with will be posted to the town website or updated there by the 18th. And on that evening, I will present, I'll give a PowerPoint presentation with the highlights of what is happening with the budget. This would be very similar to the presentation that normally gets made at a public hearing of the budget. So that is something that we'd still like to do, and it'll just be in a different, through a different vehicle. We'll give the Board of Finance members an opportunity to talk about the process and their opinions. And at some point, we will instruct the public on how to submit commentary. This will be done actually much sooner than the 18th, I would imagine, but we will remind everybody again how they can still provide input on this new proposed budget that the Board of Finance comes up with. After we will be, the Board of Finance members will be monitoring the commentary that gets posted on the town's website. And we'll be looking at that, considering it, and when we come together on the evening on May 27th, we'll talk about that commentary and we'll make a decision based on whether we still want to roll forward with what we've already come up with or if we want to amend that in some fashion. So this is a new part of the process also, because again, we're trying to condense meetings, and usually that May 27th meeting is reserved solely for setting a mill rate, but we're going to combine a couple of steps there and have a final opportunity to adopt a final budget that evening. So once we make the motion to adopt that final budget, we will set the mill rate. And then the town will have a month to get the tax bills out. So I know that Anna Johnson has put together this list and sent it out to all Board of Finance members for their consideration. Are there any questions or concerns with how we're proposing to move forward with the schedule and the process?
I had a couple of questions and possible, suggestions or whatever. But first, I'd like to say I think on the whole, the procedure, is very good because we have to at the same time follow the governor's respective orders, and as you know, there are quite a few of them. We also have to adhere to as much of the charter as concerns public meetings, and obviously freedom of information as concerns public meetings. So this is very good that we're covering our topics here really well. So that's that. But well done. I just had a thought about the date of May 9, which is the long session from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And I just wanted to throw it out there that perhaps another possibility might be 2 days, let's say Saturday, May 9th, maybe a half-day session, like a 9 to 12:30 or 1 or something. And then that following Monday, which is the 11th, doing an evening session. And I was thinking, not only for us, perhaps, if we have other things happening in our own lives, but from the perspective of the public, it might just, and the perspective of the department heads presenting, it might just give some flexibility so that we're not doing everything in one day and expecting every department head, every board member, and every member of the public that wants to listen in to do that. So that was just a thought. We can maybe mull that around. And my only other potential thought was maybe sometimes the 6 o'clock meetings, maybe 6:30. I'm thinking back to our other special meetings that tended to be at 6:30. But again, that's something we can discuss as a group. And I think the whole chart, definitely as you post it, will be very helpful to the public once they see this, in addition to the various budget documents and a slide presentation that you'll be doing, Camille, and anything else that Anna posts. But this will be very helpful because it'll really be a concise way for the public to wrap their heads around what we're doing, and for us too. So, but that's good. But I don't know, did anyone have any feeling about all day versus 2 days, cut in half, or time changes? Is it just, is that my only thought, my personal thought, or I'm the only one thinking that way?
Why don't we go down the line? Why don't we start with John? What's your feeling on that, John?
I wouldn't be unopposed to that. I mean, doing an all-day session like that is kind of weary, but having 2 days, 4 or 5 days, 4 or 5 hours apart would be okay with me. Because I have things I have to do during the day, and I'm sure other people do too. So to have 8 hour, 9 hour session for the whole day might be a problem. I don't know if that affects anybody else on the board, but it could possibly affect myself.
Peter, what do you think?
I don't want to sway the board because my workload is increased with this whole thing. So there's nothing that's convenient. So it's either inconvenient one way or inconvenient another way. I just need to know in advance so I can adjust my schedule. I may come back. I'm going to investigate. My schedule's changing and evolving daily. The 6 o'clock could be a problem for me. 6:30 would not be a problem for me, but I don't know that yet. So I'm not saying anything about it yet. Okay. I mean, I'm hearing it and I can probably make some adjustments. So either way is inconvenient for me, so I'm not going to sway it one way or the other.
Okay.
It's about as honest as I can be.
And, okay. Rich, what's your feeling? What's your
I can
preference?
go either way. I think for the sake of being able to really focus and concentrate, to do it all in one day could be a struggle. I kind of like Anne's idea to split it between the two, but I'm okay either way, whichever way the board goes. My preference would be to split it.
Okay, Ann Chikello.
Okay, I think the meeting's at 6. I guess with this coronavirus, I'm working like more than ever before. So if we could start the meetings at 6:30, then I could get home in time to be there. I mean, I can make 6, but 6:30 would just give me a little bit more time. So that would be helpful for me. But if people want to do it at 6, I'll make it work. The all day, I think I was one who suggested that, but I think the idea of splitting it up is good. I think that it will be fresher if we split it up in 2 days, and I think we'll have a better concentration and a little time to digest maybe what we've heard on Saturday, listen to what's going forward on Monday.
Okay, I think what I'm hearing is everybody is saying that they would prefer 6:30 start times.
Yes.
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 That would
So
be great for me.
So I'm good. I'm good with 6:30 also. I had just suggested 6 o'clock because we do have a condensed schedule and I know how long some of these meetings can go. But I'm okay with 6:30. And I prefer the all-day Saturday, honestly, but if everybody else is wanting to break that up, I'm okay with that too. And I think I'm hearing the majority would like to see that split up.
Is that going to be a problem though with the town departments? I mean, that's the other question I think that needs to be answered or addressed.
I don't
They-
think so. To answer that, if you would, Madam Chair, Saturday is an off day for them, so and they're used to coming in at night for a Board of Finance meeting. Some of them several times a year. So we'll make it work. I think we'll need to schedule this in advance, especially for those in consideration that might have to come in on a Saturday. Though nobody's traveling these days, there's still personal things that people are taking care of. So let's get that schedule out early. We'll make it work.
So so the actual dates that are listed here are all good, except what I'm hearing is that we should pull 4 hours out of the May 9th meeting and schedule that for Monday, May 11th.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me go. And that would start at 6:30 as well. So the Saturday meeting maybe would go from 9 to 1 p.m. with a slight break. Okay.
Is that a hard 1 o'clock?
Probably not.
Could I schedule something at 1:15?
Let's say a hard one.
That's a loose one. Let's face it.
We have never in our history had a hard stop on these meetings.
Right.
So I'm not making any promises,
Just checking.
but that will be the goal. How about that? 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. on Saturday, May 9th, and then we'll continue with the presentations on Monday night, May 11th at 6:30. So one by one, can we all say that they're in agreement with those changes?
Yeah.
So Rich,
Yes.
Ann Chikello,
Yes.
Ann Santoro,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
and John.
Yes.
Okay, so Anna and I will work on revising the schedule, and we will publish it on the website.
And we agreed to 6:30 rather than 6.
Yes.
Okay.
And Camille, you'll also send that out to us besides just posting.
Yes.
Thank you.
Is there anything that that I've forgotten to include? Is there anything that I'm forgetting to include on this process? Anything that we need to think about or do that's not included?
I just have one quick question, and just when it talks about public dial-in, is that where people like write in questions or do they speak, or like how does that work just technologically? Does anyone know?
So there will be two options. People can either dial in and listen to the call on their phone, or since all the meetings will be in this webinar format, they can sign on and listen and see the actual meeting as it's happening. The meetings will also be recorded and published on the website, just like our current videos are currently published on the website. And Karen Z will be taking the minutes of the meetings and also posting them just as we normally do. In terms of the public input, there will be an opportunity for them to give their commentary in a public fashion on the town's website. So
Okay.
the intent of that would be similar to public delegations during a regularly scheduled meeting or a special meeting. How we have as an agenda item public delegations and people come up to the podium and they speak. We have no control over how many people will be dialing in or how many people will need to speak, but we know that we have these constrained timeframes on how we have to get this done. So I think by giving people the opportunity to submit their comments over a long period of time that can be visible to everyone, including us, where we can go and read and absorb, that would take the place of those public delegations. Additionally, I have a Facebook page, so I think some members in the public have reached out to me through messaging or private email. Sometimes they get phone calls. The public should know that that's always an option as well for those Board of Finance members that wish to avail themselves. So I'm not sure if that fully answers your question, Anne.
No, it did. I just wasn't sure if like during the meetings they could actually like chat and ask questions and stuff like that during our meetings. That was kind of what I was getting at.
So I would say no, that there
Yeah.
won't be an opportunity to have a Q&A type of session. Just similar to our public meetings, there's no opportunity to have a back and forth dialogue with the public during our public meetings. They have a
Okay.
chance to speak during public delegations, but there is no back and forth.
Okay.
Certainly if people have questions, they can pose that question in their commentary. And depending on what the question is, if an answer is warranted, I think we'll have to discuss who should be answering that question.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Okay.
And
That
so
was-
Camille,
Yes.
as Jeff had mentioned that the Board of Ed will get us a revised budget, kind of highlighting where they've made reductions. I would assume Mark from the town side will be receiving a highlighted reductions of the town budget.
Yeah, we're going to work on identifying some cuts that we can make and put off. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
The budget that gets published on the town's website will also have a few new columns this year. again, this is sort of unprecedented to have each of the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Education go back and take an opportunity to revisit those originally proposed budgets. So we're gonna have two columns for the town budget side on the website. One would be the original as proposed, and one would be the amended by the Board of Selectmen. And then by the time we get down to May 18th, the third column will have what the Board of Finance proposes. So that will be on the website, and we will get hard copies or maybe just emailed copies sent to us as well.
Okay. Camille, I did have a question for Anna Johnson while she's here. So I was wondering if you have any sense at this point, Anna, as to when you will get figures from the state. I know they come at the end of our usual process in terms of, you know, state grants and other revenues that come our way. So is there something, any information coming to you? Because everything has been, you know, pushed way out, but that will of course impact, you know, our revenue sheet. So just wondering if you've heard anything.
So at this point, I have not received any information. I did reach out to the contact that I have at CCM, and he really did not have any information to provide. He said it's as good as anybody's guess at this point in time.
Okay, so those numbers that we have in existence already from, let's say, it's like the state's February numbers that come our way, and then you've used them in our budget documents, those numbers from the state, as let's say, you know, a particular state grant or whatever else, those numbers will stay the same unless we hear from you otherwise.
That's correct. Actually, one of the comments that my contact made in our discussion was that the numbers that we have for the 2021 budget were part of the biennial budget that was passed into law last year. He used that word,
Right.
the law.
Yes.
As we know, this is continuously evolving, and everything is up in the air at this point.
Right. I mean, the good news is that we could also be getting some additional dollars too at some point, but that's not entirely clear yet. But well, thanks. So that's helpful. And same thing with on the tax side. I guess you at some point will update maybe your tax revenue figures once you perhaps have a discussion with John in tax department, tax collector, and see if those numbers have changed or what the expectation of those numbers might be. You know, I mean, we usually have a high collection rate, but that number may change.
Right. We'll have all that information as we get into those discussions. The revenue during this session, now that we're breaking it up into two, one of those will contain revenue, and we'll do a deep dive as deep as we can. Keep in mind there'll be you know, we're anticipating a lot of federal money coming back to the state to make the state whole, which in turn would make us whole, and also FEMA money. We're already sitting in. One of the organizations I didn't tell you about is we're sitting in FEMA teleconferences already, talking about what we're doing now that is reimbursable. We're taking on some added expenses at the town level, but even our day-to-day, some of that is going to be reimbursable, as it has been in the past. Normally, FEMA is bailing us out on one of those 5-day hurricanes or 10-day blizzards. This is a 3 or 4 month event, so we're not quite sure what they're going to accept and not accept. But we're in conferences already with FEMA to try to determine that. So again, good for us for putting this off as long as possible. We might have a better indication of what we'd expect back. It sometimes takes a while to get that money back, but knowing it's, you know, an accounts receivable is good enough sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Following up on Ann though, with the taxes, are they still going to be due like July 1st, or has that been pushed out further for a date for the collection?
One of the executive orders speaks to that, and you may have caught that. There are two options for towns. Option one says push the whole tax date out 3 months. Nobody would have to pay their taxes until October 1st would be the due date. However, those that pay by escrow would still be due on July 1st. That would mean that we still have to stick to our schedule, right? Because we need to set a mill rate, so at least those, and it's about half the people, those that pay by escrow would still get their taxes in on time. Option two is to say, no, it's due on July 1st. Those who wish to delay up to 90 days can do so at a 0.25% interest. So 3% annually, a 0.25% per month over 3 months, they can delay it. Once they get to the 4th month though, we're finding out the details. Anna and Johnson and I sat in a meeting today talking about those little details. Once they get to the 4th month, they have to have paid their taxes or the regular rate is retroactive. So the Board of Selectmen probably at next week's meeting will decide option one or option two. I'm more inclined to go with option two in that we have a cash flow issue in this town, and we need to collect taxes to pay the bonds that are due in July, to pay the teachers that will need to get paid for the summer, and we have a lot of bills due in July. So, our government still needs to maintain, and that's what I'm going to recommend as option two. But we'll see where the Board of Selectmen end up next Wednesday.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That's Mark.
Yes.
That's my question. If they push it out 90 days to pay the taxes, there's going to a lot of people are not going to pay on July 1st. They're going to wait to 90 days. Are we going to have enough money to pay our bills?
Well, again, the escrow would be due on July 1st, and we get somewhere between 40 and 50%, I think, of the escrow. The payments are escrowed. So mortgage companies are required within this executive order. It speaks specifically to, even though people can put their mortgage payments off for 90 days, the mortgage companies still have to pay the escrow on time. You know what? Some will put it off, and some people will get rid of it. And pay it on time, and hopefully we'll receive enough money to keep it going for a while. We'll have no choice. Those are our two options.
Yeah, I'd go with the second option too.
Yeah.
Well, if I just might say one thing too, in terms of that executive order and having that 90-day window to pay your taxes, you would only qualify for the reduced interest rate if you can prove that it's a hardship for you not to pay your taxes. Like somebody just can't come into the tax office and say, oh, I want that 90-day deferment. They're going to have to provide proof that they're eligible for that.
That's for the people that have been laid off, that sort of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Businesses that were non-essential, and that's my big concern. And that's all our big concern. We get a lot of money from some of these businesses that haven't been open and won't have been open, and maybe in July might still not be open.
Yeah.
We don't know where this is going, and how long the ramp up back is into the economy. So that would be my concern as the small businesses. And of course, the families with not getting a paycheck right now. Some of that's being resolved through the payroll protection programs for small businesses. Some is being protected by unemployment and the extra $600 a week some of our residents are getting being on unemployment right now.
Okay, anybody else have any questions or comments?
Good.
If not, again, I'll just end it by saying that we'll get a revised schedule out to everybody, and we will march on. With that, if I could have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Somebody? So I'm sorry, who made the motion?
I
I think
did.
I did.
Oh, okay.
Both of us
Okay,
did.
how about Ann Santoro made the motion and Ann Chichello seconded. All those in favor,
Hi.
say aye. Great. Opposed?
Yellow on the screen.
All right, everyone, thank you very much. I would consider this a very successful first attempt at a Board of Finance webinar. Congratulations, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care,
We'll see you
everybody. Stay
soon.
safe.
Take care.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.